Doucement, doucement, Vedanga. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Gaurangi 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 Jaya Gaurangi Jaya Govinda Madhava Shri Radhe lagi? Ya, Chaitanya, kalau Nityananda share duit dan tidak share di Gaurangi makanya Nama Vishnu pada Krishna bersahabat dari Shrimati. Regarde, j'ai renversé de l'eau. Chaitanya Charitamrita ki? No, leave the water here. But you can wipe it out.
Oh, I understand what you mean.
Huh?
I understand what you mean.
So, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila. Alors, I'm going to do an English, French, English, okay, English, why not? Madhya Lila.
Chapter 12 takes 24.
24, okay, I'm going to do 24 now. The chapter,
Jayo Jayo Chi Chaitanya,
Yeah.
Jayo Nityananda, Jaya Veta Chandra, Jaya Gauranga Linda.
I've been distracted by the water. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Jaya Veta Chandra, Jaya Gauranga Linda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Mantra. Okay. Alors, it's the chapter, the cleansing of the Gundicha temple. By the way, Giri Govardhan Prabhu, his previous name was Gundicha. You know what the Gundicha is a place in Jagannath Puri during the Ratha Yatra. The cart goes from the Puri temple, Jagannath Puri temple, to the Gundicha, where Lord Chaitanya, where Lord Senior is going to stay for a few days to recover. Lord Jagannath. Okay. So, chapter 12, we're going to maybe remind you a little bit of the previous verses. You were not here, most of you. So the thing is, in Puri, there was the king, in Pratapurura. He really wanted to see Lord Chaitanya. But Lord Chaitanya said, okay, a sannyas doesn't meet a materialistic person engaged in money and women and all these material things. So, so I'm going to read a few previous verses. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya then said, "We shall go once again to the Lord, but we shall not request him to meet the king. Rather, we shall simply describe the good behavior of the king." Because the king was a great devotee, very great devotee. Having thus reached a decision, they all went to the place of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There, although ready to speak, they could not even utter a word. After they arrived at Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's place, the Lord, seeing them, said, "What have you all come here to say? I see that you want to say something, but you do not speak. What is the reason?" Nityananda Prabhu then said, "We want to tell you something. Although we cannot stay without speaking, we are still very much afraid to speak. We want to submit before you something that may or may not be befitting. The matter is this. Unless he sees you, the king of Orissa will become a mendicant." Nityananda Prabhu continued, "The king has decided to become a mendicant and accept the sign of a mendicant, and by wearing an ivory earring. He does not want to enjoy his kingdom without seeing the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu." Nityananda Prabhu continued, "The king also expressed his desire to see the moonlight face of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to his eyes' full satisfaction. He would like to raise the lotus feet of the Lord to his heart." Hearing all these statements, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mind was certainly softened, but externally he wished to speak some harsh words. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I can understand that you all desire to take me to Cuttack to see the king. So that's the verse we're going to do, 22.
24.
Oh, it's 24, okay, 24. I'll read the text first, so we can have some idea of what we're saying. So text 24, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, what to speak of spiritual advancement? All the people will blaspheme me. And what to speak of all the people? Damodar would chastise me. So word for word. Parama Artha Takuka. What to speak of spiritual advancement? You can repeat. What to speak
of spiritual advancement?
Loke.
Okay.
People in general.
People in general.
Karibe Nindana.
Karibe Nanda.
Will blaspheme.
Will blaspheme.
Loke Rahu.
Loke Rahu.
What to speak of people in general?
What to speak of people in general?
Damodar.
Damodara.
Damodar Pandit.
Damodar Pandit.
Karibe.
Karibe.
Will do.
Will do.
Vatsana.
Vatsana.
Chastisement.
Chastisement.
Paramata Takuka Loke Karibe Nindana.
Paramata Takura Loke Karibe Nindana.
C'est Takuka. Paramata Takuka Loke Karibe Nindana.
Paramata Takura Loke Karibe Nindana.
Loke Rahu Damodara Karibe Vatsana.
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 Paramata Takuka Loke Karibe Nindana.
Paramata Takura Loke Karibe Nindana.
Loke Rahu Damodara Karibe Vatsana.
Loke Rahu Damodara Karibe Vatsana.
Paramata Takuka Loke Koribe Nindana.
Paramata Takura Loke Koribe Nindana.
Loke Rahu Damodara Koribe Vatsana.
Loke Rahu Damodara Koribe Vatsana. Paramata Takura Loke Koribe Nindana. Loke Rahu Damodara Koribe Vatsana.
Loke Rahu Damodara Koribe Vatsana.
Vaishnavi?
Paramata Takuka Loke Karibe Nindana.
Paramata Takura Loke Koribe Nindana.
Loke Rahu Damodara Karibe Vatsana.
Loke Rahu Damodara Koribe Vatsana.
Bon, je relis le texte. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued. What to speak of spiritual advancement? All the people will blaspheme me. And what to speak of all the people? Damodar would chastise me. Text 25. Tamasabara Agyaya Amina Milita Chare Damodara Kayabe Milita Betanre. I shall not be the king at the request of all the devotees, but I shall do so if Damodar will give me his permission. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. From the spiritual point of view, a sannyas is strictly forbidden to see materialistic people, especially a king who is always engaged in counting pounds, shillings, and pence, and euros. Indeed, the meeting between a sannyas and a king is always considered abominable. A sannyas is always subjected to public criticism, and a small fault on his part is taken seriously by the public. People actually expect a sannyas to preach and not take part in any social or political matters. If a sannyas is subject to public criticism, his preaching will not be fruitful. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu specifically wanted to avoid such criticism so that his preaching work would not be hampered. It so happened that while the Lord was talking to his disciple at that time, the devotee Damodar Pandit was present. This Damodar Pandit was a very faithful devotee and a staunch lover of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Whenever there was anything that might touch or taint the character of the Lord, Damodar Pandit would immediately point it out, not even considering the exalted position of the Lord. It is sometimes said that fools rushing were angels, they are not. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to point out Damodar Pandit's foolishness in coming forward to criticize the Lord. Thus the Lord indirectly hinted that if Damodar Pandit would give him permission, he would go to see the king. There was deep meaning in this statement, for it is a warning that Damodar should not dare criticize the Lord anymore, for it was not befitting his position as a devotee. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was considered the guide and spiritual master of all the devotees living with him. Damodar Pandit was one of them, and the Lord rendered Damodar Pandit a special favor by warning him to avoid criticizing him any further. A devotee or a disciple should never attempt to criticize the Lord or his representative, the spiritual master. You understand English? You?
Yes, yes.
Oh, good. I was not sure. Okay, so we have a good verse and a good topic, criticism. Of course, we all know here nobody criticizes anybody. We never think of criticizing anybody. We are pure devotee. No, I'm joking.
Unfortunately.
So criticism. So the first thing to notice is that the Lord, Supreme Lord, is taking into account the opinion of the public. And in fact, that's why in the first place he took sannyas, if you remember. I don't know if it's in Chaitanya Charitamrita or Chaitanya Bhagavad. One time the Lord was in ecstasy and he was saying, Gopi, Gopi. And some students criticized him. Said, well, why are you chanting Gopi, Gopi? You should chant Krishna, Krishna. So the Lord, saying that it wasn't good for the students to criticize him, he decided to take sannyas. That was one reason. Because normally at this time, the culture, a sannyas was respected. So automatically they would respect it more and not criticize him, which would have been detrimental to the spiritual life. So here Lord Chaitanya shows that he's considering the people in general, even could criticize him and it would be detrimental for them. So it's good to reflect on the Lord. When he comes, he came as a devotee. We can never say he came as a devotee, but of course he manifested his divine nature, his divinity, the faith. Many times he manifested, Mahaprakash. One of them, for 24 hours, he showed different incarnations to different devotees according to the relationship they had with him, with Krishna. But here, is concerned, Lord Chaitanya came to preach, came to preach, to show the example of a devotee and to spread the Sankirtan movement. So he was concerned. So that's the duty of a sannyas anyway. By the way, there's a very good book. I encourage you to read it. It was by, what's the name? Swami, the Swami was here. What's his name? Spanish Swami. Yadunandan. Holding my memory. So Yadunandan Swami, he wrote a very nice book about sannyas. I can lend it to you sometime if you want. So there's different kind of sannyas, and also at different times, like especially in the West, people don't really know what is a duty of a sannyas, what is a sannyas in the first place. Of course, they can relate that to a monk, but it's not really the equivalent of the monk. Preaching mendicant, more like Jesus Christ. He was preaching and traveling. So here, Lord Chaitanya is considering, if I meet the king, even though he was a great devotee, people will criticize me. And there's another verse later that says, if people see a little speck of black ink and a sannyas, they will immediately find the black ink, the fault, the little fault, they will point it and advertise it like wildfire. And unfortunately, we know that in our Eastern society, later something by sannyasi and we got some fault finders coming to the rescue. That's another topic. So, in other words, a sannyas is to show perfect example. Is to show a perfect example. And even here, he heard about all the qualities of the king, and his devotion. But still here. So he was concerned with Damodar Pandit. The Damodar Pandit, it's amazing, he's described as a great devotee, very faithful and staunch lover of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he was very concerned with his reputation, and he didn't want people to criticize the Lord, which was a very good attitude, in fact. But the Lord made a point, in this Lila, that it was not his position, the devotee, at the sadhu, to criticize the Lord, The devotee should never attempt, should never attempt to criticize the Lord or his representative, the spiritual master. So, this is the theory, this is the guideline, and what to do, what not to do. And we could criticize, if we want, even Srila Prabhupada, which is a pure devotee, exalted devotee, he was criticized by his godbrother to start with. You know why he was criticized by his godbrother? You know why? Because he introduced let women live in temples. And they were, well, it was never done, etc. And the Prabhupada said, okay, for all their criticism, we're doubling the preaching. And it's a fact, In fact, a lot of temples were built because of the preaching of many Vaishnavis who were distributing books in airport and other places, and collecting, of course. So Prabhupada is so in the West, you cannot say no woman. There would be no men in the first place. They wouldn't come to our temples if they could not see any women. Most of them. So Prabhupada had the right vision, and he was criticized, but there's a saying, the dogs can bark, but the caravan will pass. So those who have a low-class mentality, they can bark, they can criticize all they want, but the caravan, the movement of Lord Chaitanya will go on, and it's going on. We can see it, So Prabhupada was empowered, And he was criticized also when his disciples sometimes, when he arrived somewhere in a temple, a lot of times, devotees, they rented a limousine, you know, fancy car. Usually it's used for VIPs, you know, president and something, big people in society. So they said, okay, you know, Prabhupada is Mahabhagavad, the representative of God, founder of Shaya International Society for Krishna Consciousness. He deserves a big car. Because, you know, sometimes they have really bad cars, you know, like in New York, the street we're moving, and anyway, you know, yeah, and they didn't have much money. So for the occasion, they rented a limousine. And some people say, what is this, you know? This Sri Lankan arriving in the limousine, and in fact, some reporter asked him one time, you know, why you say you detached, you know, you're not materialist, but look at the car you arrived in. And he said, in fact, they should have given me a golden car because I'm the representative of God. You know, he always has some good replicas, Prabhupada. Of course, he was totally satisfied with any car, any situation, and he was happy living in a hut like in Mayapur. So Prabhupada definitely was not attached to material things. But as a representative of the Lord, it's got to be properly under. But sometimes the devotees just went too far. Like in Paris, I was in Salle Player, and well, they had a big SSM, you know, some big. And it was the time, I was 70, so the time of the revolution, and the leftists really active, you know. I was one of them. I know what it is. So they saw Prabhupada speaking, sitting on this huge opulent seat, and at the end they started to make noise and everything. Prabhupada said, okay, kept on. But it happened also in Holland, I think, same thing, same time. So Prabhupada told them, okay, you want to sit on this seat? If you know the science of God, yeah, well, go ahead, sit down, you know. Because that shut them up, you know, they had nothing to say after that. And but afterwards, he told the devotees, hey, listen, next time you bring me a simple seat, you know. I mean, it was like too much for the French revolutionaries, you know. And see, it shows also that you have to be aware of time, place, and circumstance, you know. Time, place, and circumstance. So it's not the same time now, you know. So Prabhupada, in fact, before he started preaching in the West, he wrote to many leaders, in India especially. The president, you know, he wanted to get the leaders of the country interested in his movement and knowing what it was about. And in fact now, you know, we see, and Prabhupada, he met the mayor of Paris, you know, he met the mayor of Paris, the mayor of Geneva, when he came, and he was always happy to meet prominent people in society, because what? They influence others, you know, they influence others. You see that why Manipur became Krishna conscious state, because the king was a Vaishnava. Why the king Ashoka was the king of India? Why Buddhism spread all over India? Because the king Ashoka. I'm not wrong. So the leaders, of course, the influence, and when the leaders of the country, like in France, yeah, they're a sect, you know, they're a cult, it influenced people. Even 20 years later, I hear that, yeah, you're a cult, you know. So, because it was in all the newspapers and the leaders' mouth. So Prabhupada, he was happy to meet with leaders, and even now, you know, many the preaching, like especially in India, because recently there was some inauguration of the biggest Bhagavad Gita. Have you heard about it? Biggest, I mean, it's big. I saw it, you know. Wow. It's one of our GDCs, Madhya Prabhu, he sponsored it. I think it cost a lot of money, you know, a lot of euros. But so it's a huge, it's in the temple of the temple of the Grove India Temple in Delhi. So it's a huge book. They had to find some special paper. Anyway, it was very heavy too. So who inaugurated this book? It was the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Modi, M-O-D-I. And he was he's always invited to many celebrations. You can look on internet. So of course, when the president or the prime minister of a country, showed appreciation and to the Hare Krishna movement, it's very beneficial for us, definitely. So it doesn't mean we associate with them. It doesn't mean we adopt their ways of doing things. And in fact, in India also, when the temple of, in fact, when the temples are inaugurated in India, they're always invited prominent state ministers, and so that's why also in India it's spreading. Of course, it's culture; it comes from there. So in France, we're not there yet. We just have a favorable mayor, which is very good in our little village. He's a friend, very favorable. His mother was always helping devotees, and he wants to do it also. He told me personally, I want to do everything for the movement that Srila Prabhupada continues. He met Srila Prabhupada when he was a kid. He came with his mother to the festival. So we like it. Despite all the difficulties we meet. And so coming back to the topic, finding faults. Finding faults. In fact, there's a good quote by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who said, "Those who praise me, they're not my friends. Those who criticize me, they're my friends." Why? Because those who praise me, my faults, you go, "Wow, I'm so great, I'm so this, I'm so that." But those who criticize me, then they force me to do some introspection, In fact, he also said, the Thakur also said, if someone finds fault with you, just don't get upset. Just look within and see your own faults, It's a good. But it doesn't mean that fault finding is always negative, Positive, for something called positive feedback. Positive feedback. So some people don't like it, but it would be very. Because if you don't give positive feedback, you're gonna do some negative criticism behind somebody's back. Anyway, coming back to the quote. One time in Paris, my guru, Maharaj, he was quoting this quote. Those who criticize me are my friends. And he said, "Yeah, Gaurangi, she's the best friend of everybody." Meaning, I was a good critic, So I was thinking, "Oh my God, am I so terrible, So I went to see him afterwards. Guru Maharaj, am I so bad? Anyway, yeah. But the thing is that in order to improve yourself and a community, you have to see also what could be improved, what's wrong, not officially wrong, but what we can improve. So some people can call it fault finding. You can call it stating the facts, looking at reality and trying to see how we can go forward, Fault finding, because fault finding, you can, look for fault where there's no fault. That's another thing. That's some people do that. Or you can see, there's something to improve and point it out. In fact, some devotees, they made a game of fault finding. They were very good friends, two good friends. They made a game of fault finding, You tell me my fault, I'll tell you yours. But in a very friendly, positive way, Not many people can do that. At some time my Shiksha Guru was Bhakti Tirtha Swami, and he was very much into encouraging communication in a community, really a real community, not a pseudo community. pseudo community, everybody is going to criticize behind somebody's back. They're not going to say openly what they think. That's a pseudo community. But so he was encouraging this exercise. I did it several times. You approach anybody here can do it. You approach somebody who knows you well. Knows you well, and you ask him, "Can you tell me how I can improve as a devotee and as a human being?" It's a very good exercise. Can you tell me? Can you tell me how I can improve as a devotee and as a human being? I will ask Dhananjaya later because he knows me well, but not in public, But it takes courage to ask, and I would say it takes courage to reply. It takes courage to say, okay, you're a little too passionate or whatever. But if it's done with a good attitude, wanted to help the person, it's very beneficial, So please, who's going to try to do this exercise today? Raise your hand. Who's going to try to ask somebody how they can improve? Everybody's perfect here? Everybody's perfect? Okay, well, not many courageous people here.
Trying is easy, doing is better.
What? I don't hear well.
Trying is easy, but doing is better.
Mais j'arrive pas à comprendre. J'arrive pas à entendre. So anyway, it's a very good exercise to do, and in fact, it creates better relationship with your friends. They know you. We know our weak points. It forces us to do introspection because something we already know. Our limitations and problems. But it's nice because it creates some link. Somebody can help us also, improve on certain points. It creates some relationships, which is I was reading recently an article, I in the book of an article from Adana Swami and a book by Mahatma Prabhu, the importance of Vaishnava relationship, Because it's not only a temple, it's not only to come and peel potatoes together, do garlands together, listen to the holy name. It's also to have relationships, how we deal with others. And sometimes it's just like me and Krishna, everybody else. It's not, it's a pseudo community, it's a pseudo community, according to a definition of Bhakti Tirtha Swami. And it's not very attractive, People come, they see, we barely even say hello to each other. Or one time I was like, hey, I'm not a ghost, I'm here, I'm in person, So, it's very important how we deal with each other. So the extreme of fault finding is, when there's no fault and you find a little thing and you magnify it and you send this all over the world through the internet, which is, we've seen it unfortunately, and there was one very expert at that, Well, Krishna took him back, good thing. He was calling all the sannyas, they have secretaries, which is a very important service and difficult service, I know. I was never secretary of my guru, but I saw them. Of course, it's always women because women are more qualified for that, They're more submissive, they have to dedicate so many hours of service, and the spot, okay, we do this, we go there. I've seen it, and I think, oh, good thing I'm not a secretary. That's a tough service. Because they are very criticized, especially women serving sannyas, Of course, it's purely devotional service. But this devotee, this big critic, he was calling them girlfriends, secretaries' girlfriends, come on. So anyway, Krishna took him back, probably has a good, maybe he's going to come back as a woman. I was a woman secretary, I'm just, we'll see. Krishna is in control, happily. Some notice, public criticism, Prabhupada, as we said. Oh yeah, there's a very nice poem. A very nice poem, I will read it, by Tukaram. Who knows who is Tukaram? This I did a governor. Tukaram was a great Vaishnava from Maharashtra, a great saint. And in fact, he spread the chanting of the holy name all over Maharashtra. And he was very criticized. There's some envious people, some envious Brahmana have tried to discredit him, you know, in many ways. And one time, because he wrote many abhangs, devotional songs, he wrote many, and they forced him to throw his own poems in the river. Chandra, I forgot the name of the river, Indrayani River. So imagine, you know, you wrote all these beautiful poems to glorify the Lord, and you have to throw them in the road. So he sat by the bank of the Indrayani, and he fasted, and chanted the holy name, and then after 7 days, the personified river came out and brought its abhangs. So it's very miraculous, you know. It shows you the caliber of the devotee. By the way, you know, at the end of his life, I saw the place in Deu. In Deu, there's a place with a big painting, and you see Tukaram sitting on a flower airplane. A flower airplane came to bring him back to Godhead, so it's not ordinary. So he was criticized, you know. So we should not be disturbed when somebody criticizes us. Even the great soul are criticized. So I'm going to read you this poem. It's in French, anyway, it's in French. Those who don't understand. La bonne réputation. Ô mon Dieu, mon roi, toi qui rachètes les déchus, il est impossible d'avoir bonne réputation. In fact, one of our French poem, Georges Brassens, he sang a song like that. No matter what you do, somebody will criticize you. You go left, okay, they criticize you. You go right, they criticize you. So we should be vaccinated. Get a vaccine against being affected by the criticism. Si j'entre dans le tourbillon des soucis quotidiens, quel pécheur, disent-ils? Si j'abandonne le monde, il veut remplir son ventre sans travailler. Si je pratique les rites, you want me to translate, somebody? No? Yeah. I can translate, huh? Okay. So, oh my God, my king, the one who is rescuing sinful people, it's impossible to have good reputation. If I enter the whirlwind of daily problems, oh, what a sinful person he is. If I give up the work, oh, he wants to fill his belly without working. Si je pratique les rites, c'est par ostentation. If I, do all the ritual, oh, it's to show off. If I don't do them, oh, is mépris, comment on dit mépriser? Forgot. To be, so if he does not do all the rites, he thinks he's above the tradition. If I look to be in the company of saints, oh, what a starter! If I avoid the saints, he's too stupid to understand the price of such a company. If I seem to be poor, oh, it's because God is chastising me. Si je parais pauvre, c'est que Dieu me châtie. Si je parais riche, c'est pour les écraser de mon orgueil. If I look to be rich, it's to smash people because of my pride. Si je parle souvent, quel bavard, disent-ils. If I speak often, oh, what a talkative person he is. Si je parle peu, il nous méprise. If I speak a little, méprisé, comment on dit? Forgot this word, méprisé. Oh yeah, he despises us. If I don't speak much, oh, he despises us. Si j'ai peu d'amis, c'est à cause de mon mauvais caractère. If I have a few friends, it's because of my bad character. If I see many friends, oh, it's because I ate my... c'est parce que j'ai mangé mon patrimoine. Si j'en visite beaucoup, c'est parce que j'ai mangé mon patrimoine. It means I spend all my inheritance, more or less. Si je me marie, il est en route. Il est en route, disent-ils. If I get married, it's because he's horny. Si je ne le fais pas, il est impuissant. If I don't get married, oh, he's impuissant. Forget my name. Comment on dit? Impuissant, anyway. Impuissant.
Important.
Ah, il est not potent. Ok, good. Si je n'ai pas d'enfant, on me regarde comme un bâtard. If I don't have any children, they look at me as a bastard. If I have a whole tribe of children, it's because I am colonizing hell. Si j'en ai une tribu, on dit que je colonise l'enfer. Leur opinion, alors écoutez bien ce verset-là. Leur opinion de la vomissure. Their opinion is just like vomit. Faut-il la garder sur ses mains si elle y tombe? Should we keep it in our hands if it falls there? Les impies ne digèrent pas la compagnie des saints. Those who are not pious cannot digest, cannot stand the company of saints. Écoute donc cette parole de Tuka. Qui ces gens-là et va adorer? So listen to this word of Tuka. Give up these people and just go and worship Krishna. So that's a good conclusion, huh? Not to criticize too much, not to criticize, and not to be affected by criticism of others. Which is and Krishna is always the expert, you know. In a community, you always have somebody who's going to criticize. But I wish it would come to the point of giving some honest feedback, honest, positive feedback, individually and collectively. Because I've seen it. I've seen Bhakti Tirtha Swami in action in his Institute for Higher Technology in Washington, D.C. One time he invited me to a meeting of the managing devotees, you know. I was just witnessing, I didn't, and I could see they were mature people, you know. They could recognize, you know, their errors, their mistake, and give positive feedback. It was very inspiring, and you know, it takes some humility, you know, spiritual advancement to behave in this way instead of fighting. And now we see wars, you know, Russia and Ukraine, you know, you're not gonna tell me anything. You know, I'm the king, I'm the big one, and I'm gonna smash you, you know. So it's done in the individual and global level, you know. So it's not. You see, the result is war. We can have local wars, mini wars. So another point I want to say, you know, in ISKCON there's many interesting seminars, in fact. One of them by Braj Bihari is called Pizza and Samosas. And some people prefer pizza, some people prefer samosa. We are different, you know. And some devotees are more like inclined towards the leftists, you know, like we need to change certain things. And some people are more conservative. No, keep it just the way Prabhupada did it. There's nothing to improve. So both parties say, hey, you're ruining Prabhupada movement by being stuck in the past. Or the other one said, yeah, you're ruining Prabhupada movement by inaugurating certain things. We hear it all the time, you know, right and left. But yeah, you know, the thing is, both parties are totally dedicated to Prabhupada, and so there's got to be some dialogue, you know, to find a middle path according to time, place, and circumstance. That's the other thing. You know, you don't change the principles of Krishna consciousness. They change the application, you know, the details according to time, place, and circumstance. And it takes some intelligence. As Prabhupada said. One time, I think it was Giriraj Swami was Prabhupada, how will the movement continue after you? No, the devotees are sincere, they're dedicated, they're following the principle, and so on. Prabhupada says, yeah, but yeah, it needs also some intelligence, and organization. Intelligence and organization. So we can put our collective intelligence together, listen to each other. Of course, and avoid putting labels on people, He's like that, she's like that. I'm not saying I don't do it, But putting label on people, it's you close them in a certain, maybe sometime, and also maybe sometime there are different circumstances. And also, we can have the qualities of our shortcomings and the shortcomings of our qualities. Let's say somebody is firm, authority. Yeah, he's too authoritarian. And somebody doesn't say a word, but you can say, wow, he should express his thoughts, a little more. So, you can see because somebody is always very humble and meek, sometimes you have to denounce things that are not beneficial for the society, right? Something you have to open your mouth, especially when some abuse. We've seen that in our movement, Some devotees 20 years later were offered apologize. They pointed out something that didn't work. And why you an envious snake, And then 20 years later or less, devotees recognize that they had some good points. So we have to be careful. Okay, it's enough for now. So who wants to make some comments? And even criticism? Questions? Stories? Ooh. Okay. So who's going to do this little exercise, Asking somebody how they can improve themselves as devotees and as human beings. Oh, thank you for your cooperation.
We should ask Mr. Putin to improve. We should ask Mr. Putin to improve this.
Can somebody, I did not put my hand.
The president of Russia, information from the world, what's happening outside. There's war.
J'ai du mal à entendre.
You were saying that we have to, I use my words, have to improve ourselves.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, because this morning I was angry against what's happening from Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, this president, he should improve his habits and the mind working. That's all.
Okay. So, Srila Prabhupada ki? Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki? Oh, glory to the assembled devotees. Real Vaishnava community ki? Okay. Open and honest communication ki? Positive feedback ki? Oh, Premanande. Hare Krishna. Hare Hare. Oops. Hare Krishna Jai. Je vois.